New guest, Daniel, who set up a fund, and it's not the most creative name, but it's definitely a name people remember because it's one of the nicest areas, and welcome on stage, Daniel. It's one of the nicest places in London, Mayfair. And I think the most impressive thing about it is that you raised a very large fund for a first-time fund.
Correct, we did.
Now, be honest, were you surprised that everything went as through as you thought, or were you expecting exactly what happened?
So we were certainly not expecting exactly what happened. We were targeting a £350 million fund, but as you point out, that's a very ambitious target for someone or a team that is raising their very first fund from proper big institutional investors. So we were a bit nervous, our placement agent were a bit nervous, and we decided that we had one very important differentiator, and that was that we had a very strong track record of a group of people that had been working together for 5 years within another organization, basically within LDC, which is the private equity business of the largest retail bank here in the UK. So we had a very strong track record as a team, and that's very important, particularly obviously when you're trying to get money from very large, very sophisticated institutions that are invested in many different private equity funds.
So you basically used the deals which you executed before. So it was a first-time fund,
Yep.
However, it was not a first-time team.
Correct, and that made a big difference. And I think the other thing that was very important was that we were able to explain very clearly how we were different from the other successful funds of our size that are largely active in the UK and then to a lesser extent on the continent.
Tell us.
So there's two things, and they sound really very basic, but actually, like many things, they're easy to explain and not so easy to execute. So the first thing is we only invest in two sectors. We invest fundamentally in the technology sector, and we have a fairly broad definition of that. So it's things like hosting, it's things like e-commerce business models, and it's things where the algorithms of the software is really very protectable, strong
Are you technical
IP.
from your background? Or?
So I was a physics undergraduate, but other than that, that's where it ended. So a very, very long time ago. So we're not technologists, absolutely not. And in my time at SoftBank, I learned that actually you really want to leave the technology to the technologists and not pretend as a financial person that in fact you are a technologist.
That's what my IT people tell me constantly. So you were at SoftBank before?
I was at SoftBank, yes indeed. So,
so one thing.
So the one thing is that we focus only on the tech sector and on the consumer sector. And in general in the UK, unlike in the venture world, when you start getting up to the development capital and mid-market part of the private equity market, you have basically a collection of businesses that have grown out of the accounting profession over the last 40 years. So one partner might focus on media businesses, another partner might focus on automotive businesses, another partner will focus on business services. And so the entire organization makes its investment decisions and sort of creates its portfolio support culture all on the basis of a one-size-fits-all. And what we discovered is that if you're talking about fast-growing technology businesses, and you're talking about fast-growing consumer-branded businesses, these businesses can grow very quickly, are almost definitely international in their ability to scale, and they have very similar needs as the rush to sort of put the business infrastructure in place to support their growth. And having a targeted, focused approach only on finding those businesses, being credible with those management teams, and being able to provide very specific types of support was a big differentiator for us.
So you got very much involved. I think some of your success stories are like you switch, which you guess
exactly.
You switched from a sad business to a great business.
Yeah, so USwitch was a great case in point. So the Forward Internet Group, a conglomerate that focuses on building internet businesses, had taken what was essentially...
Neil Hutchinson was here on stage a few years ago.
And Neil's a fantastic guy and a very, very...
brave guy.
A very brave guy, I agree. So his contribution to USwitch was that he found a broken asset that had been bought by a US corporate that had overpaid for it and then started to kill it. And he saw that actually using some of the sophisticated internet-oriented marketing techniques that were bread and butter for him because of the businesses he had built would transform the business. And so he bought the business very inexpensive. From
Scripps, I believe it was.
From Scripps, exactly right, big US media company. And he changed some of the management team and he changed the business model quite fundamentally. And And he started to see some early success, but he realized, and I think this is one of the great strengths of people like Neil, I think it's important for people to focus on what they're good at and to be honest with themselves about what they're good at and what other people are better at. And he saw that the business had gotten to the point where it was no longer about providing smart techniques for internet marketing and no longer about some of the value add that a venture capitalist or someone that takes quite a high level of execution risk should be taking. But now the business needed to be more professionally managed and needed to have more infrastructure.
That's when you came in.
And that's when we came in. And fortunately for us, we were backing a fabulous management team. So Steve Weller is one of those people who is quite rare in that he is not just someone that is quite a strong leader and quite a visionary, but importantly, someone that gets his hands dirty every single day, likes getting into the detail, and also a good people person.
It's also a tough industry, to lead gen in general.
It's a tough industry, and it's very important. You say lead gen. It's actually very important to understand. One of the most attractive things about Usage, and one of the reasons why we got very excited about buying it, is that it's the only e-commerce business in Europe that is not really a lead gen business. It hands actually a customer, a signed-up customer, to its client, which is one of the big, whichever of the big
I still call it lead gen. It's just that you get a different price on it.
But you get a different price on it for a good reason. It's actually complicated.
But Facile in Italy is the same.
Yep.
And Verivox also in many extents, it's a half-half. Some get it. It depends of if they also close the contract behind the firewall of the provider. And sometimes they let you in, sometimes they don't, then they have on the conversion. We know a lot about it. But let's talk about the future.
Okay.
So Daniel, we have tons of mature internet companies. In the heated debate of our VC panel today, there's a view, once you have established a quality base which you can scale, it's just about money. Yep. Now, you are focusing on the large stage, and despite the flooding of family offices, sovereign wealth funds, Chinese investors, you managed to raise a fund very, very easily. What is it you are now looking for? And is it just in the UK, or is it pan-European, or what's your investment focus?
Sure, so a couple things. So first of all, our investment focus is very much businesses that are scalable, either online or offline, but are scalable internationally, and where they've really passed the point where it's about either taking a big risk on the technology or a big risk on the commercial model. So it is all about execution. I would challenge the point that was, I guess, debated earlier today about it being all about money, because it's not all about money. Let me give you an example of one of our portfolio companies. So Ovo Energy is one of our portfolio companies, and it is only a domestic UK company.
Did you bring them over from?
No.
So it's already...
It's our first investment, yes, indeed.
So you already did one?
We've already made four. We've already made 4 investments.
When did you raise the fund? I thought it was just now.
We raised the fund over the last 15 months.
You started investing during...
But okay. Exactly. We were fortunate to have a very big first closing, so we were able to already start investing. So we actually finished our fundraising just about a month ago, and we already have 4 portfolio companies.
And they're all in the UK?
They're all in the UK.
Yeah.
This 5th one that we're about to invest is actually not. It's actually in the US. And then there's a 6th one that's coming down the pike that's in the Netherlands. So about half of our capital is likely to be invested in the UK, which in our view is reflective of the spread of opportunities at the stage that we're looking for. But just going back to the point about Ovo and about it being all about money, this is quite a big business. So when we invested in it last year, it had already 340,000 subscribers. It competes in the UK with British Gas and with SSE and basically all of the big vertically integrated providers of gas and electricity, so utility providers to homes in the UK. But it's an all internet business model. So it's sort of like Virgin Media and a couple of other businesses that don't own their own infrastructure, but rather like the MVNO business model. And it's already quite sizable. When we invested, it had about 340 million in turnover and 340,000 subscribers. And now, a year later, it will have about 700 million in turnover, okay, and about 650,000 subscribers. But when we invested last year, it lost 31 million pounds after customer acquisition costs. This year, it will have positive EBITDA of about 58, 60 million pounds. So fabulously strong business, already quite a big business, and taking a massive amount of market share from big vertically integrated players in a 33 billion pound market. So it's a relatively mature internet company, I think people would agree. But we've been helping that business a lot scale its internal corporate infrastructure.
Right.
Basically 3 different ways. Operations. So this is a business that's very sophisticated on understanding how to serve customers, very sophisticated in using the tools of the internet from a marketing standpoint. But like any other business, it's struggling to cope with all the normal operating bits and pieces that go with any fast-growing technology business. How to motivate and manage and compensate developers. How to cope with the fact that the cheapest developers are going to be in a location where the commercial people are not. So just all the sort of standard growth pains that you see with any reasonable sized business. So we don't have the answers to all those things, but we know how to ask the question. So our portfolio people are basically schooled in knowing how in an industrial way how to analyze and optimize certain business processes, whether those are in operations, in finance and tax structuring, which is IP protection, very important for many of our businesses actually do business in Asia as well. So IP protection, very important, as you were just hearing about earlier from Patrick. And then in social and digital media marketing, that's our other area of expertise.
Wow. You seem to have figured it all out, huh? One last question. Your old employer, is he LP in the new fund?
So no, that's not possible. LDC invests only off the balance sheet of Lloyd's Banking Group. And so, so it's a fully captive fund. So when we started our fundraising, we had to raise money from institutions without having any background at all. So we've been very fortunate to have had such a
we are fortunate to have been able to host you and listen to the man who raised the largest ever UK VC fund from the get-go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.